You're all going back and forth. So
ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is being recorded. Today is August 7th, 2023. Please rise for the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda tonight is a public hearing regarding local law number 7, revising chapter 169 of the village zoning code.
The public hearing will be held Monday, August 7th, 2023 at 6 p.m. regarding local law number 7 of 2023 for the village of Menands, amending the zoning law, chapter 3, chapter 169-20, on the Broadway Business District, and Article 19, 169-94 definitions. All meetings are The meeting will be held at 250 Broadway. All meetings are open to the public and to the handicap. And that's it.
So we are going to take public comment at this time. Everyone is limited to 3 minutes. Let's please allow each other to talk and not interrupt them. So who's first?
Go ahead. Hi, Brian. I will support local law number 7, for the village of Menands, amending the chapter 169 zoning village code. And first, general welfare, health, economic, public safety, and the quality of life reasons. So, and that's one of the issues that's going to be spoke about at the regular meeting. So I urge all village board members, please approve local law number 7 of 2023, amending chapter 169 zoning village code. Please and thank you. I urge you to do it. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm done for now. You're welcome.
Is this specific to the public hearing? Will
Yes.
there be, okay,
Yeah.
so there will be another public comment period?
Open forum, yes.
Okay.
Anything on local law?
Nothing on,
Brian, I'm confused. It says, what is number 9? What's the difference between number 9 and the public hearing?
So the board, if it so wishes, will vote on local law number 7.
Can you take a second then and explain to us what the meat and potatoes are of that? Not all of us are up to speed on.
Sure. Tim?
All right, so what we didn't have within our code was a definition for a controlled substance dispensary. So going to basically, as an example, what the city of Albany used, we just added that to our code. As you know, the village spent quite a bit of time doing a comprehensive plan, which actually predates when I was even on the board, which resulted in a revision of our entire zoning. And this was a definition that we didn't have, so we're simply adding it. We're placing it in a section where it's covered under the Broadway Business District. At the same time, we're removing cannabis dispensary from the T5 district, and we're removing medical facilities 20,000 feet. 20,000 square foot from the T4, which is a very small area. So it's just an amendment to the zoning as with the past when we passed the comprehensive plan.
Does this in any way affect the Fusion property?
I can't answer that question. I don't know the status of it. All this is a definition. We didn't have a definition in our code, and in order to address anything moving forward, we have to have this definition to be specific to this type of facility. So I don't know this. I don't know the current.
Is there any reason why Fusion would come back before any of the local zoning boards?
That's a legal question. I don't know.
Are you allowed to answer?
I'll be giving advice to the, and providing that the board can an executive session especially in light of the fact that there have been 2 letters from Fusion's attorneys. We're not going to discuss it in a public setting.
So this may or may not have anything to do with Fusion, but we're not gonna talk about
Well, I mean, all the local law does is add a definition to our zoning, which we
it.
didn't
For
have.
a future application,
Moving forward, yeah.
but not for applicants who have already received all their approvals at the local level.
If somebody already if somebody's already got their zoning done,
And certificate of occupancy.
that's, you know,
What specifically are the definitions
the definitions of what, this, of,
that you're adding?
this, well, if you want to read it, controlled substance dispensary, a business licensed by New York State Office of Addiction Services and Oasis that is registered to operate in New York State that sells, prescribes, or otherwise distributes drugs, goods, or materials that are listed as controlled substances under the Federal Controlled Substances Act or the New York State Public Health Law to persons and under conditions authorized by the state of New York. These uses include opioid treatment and medically assisted treatment programs. For the purpose of this chapter, controlled substance dispensaries shall not include cannabis retail dispensaries as defined separately under this chapter, because at the same time, we are also amending the cannabis dispensary, which is licensed under the Office of Cannabis Management, which we're adding to that definition. But the definition we're using is pulled almost verbatim from what the city of Albany currently has and has been using.
So if a company that already exists doesn't have the license to dispense opiate medications as like AKA methadone, they would have to go get a special use permit once they are applying for that level of service.
Once this law is passed, if they need a special use permit for that purpose, yeah, they would have to come in to get the special use permit, yes.
Well, you're saying that they would need a special use permit for that, so I'm saying, because the question that Charles had was, it wouldn't affect the company that's currently operating.
No, because we don't
If
have,
they're not currently operating with that level of service, the new level of service would be an add-on to their current operation, and they would need to come for a special use permit, yes?
These are all legal questions which are going to be addressed in executive session. We're not.
This is for
gonna-
I'm just speaking in generalities, I'm
You're
not
not,
speaking
but you're
about a
not,
specific.
Steve, you're not talking in generalities, and you know that.
I am.
You're asking specific questions. This is a public comment period. If you'd like to make a public comment, comment. This is not a question and
My
answer
public
session.
comment would be if a company that already exists doesn't have a certain level of operating certificate and they want to add it, they should have to go through a special permit process with this local law addition and definition. That would be my comment.
So I would comment that if somebody has a medical, we're zoning for a medical facility and we're approved for zoning for such by the village of Menands, and now want to dispense a controlled substance in that medical facility, they should have to, under this proposal, come forward. That would be what I would comment and recommend as part of it.
Anyone else?
I just have a quick question. Is the board going to go into executive session before item 9?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I'm in the back of the room. So I gotta get- Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the regulation? What's the effective date? And is it retroactive?
they're never retroactive.
If and when it gets passed, there's usually a
It has to go to the
30
state.
to, it has to go to the Department of State. It's usually 30 or 60 days, after it's passed.
So it's subject to Sabbath,
Pardon me?
subject to the state public regulation.
It's a formality with the state. It's a filing requirement.
But that's their appeal. If an applicant feels as if they've been wrong by the actions of the board of trustees, they have 45 to 60 days to file an appeal.
No, they have, it would be more than likely an Article 78, which they would have 4 months in which to bring in action.
Sure.
I would just like to ask the board, when you go into executive session, to ask yourselves the question, is what we're about to do something that is targeted specifically and will specifically impact access to treatment for people who have an opioid disorder and who would be prescribed medication for that opioid use disorder? And is this specific to that population of people? Or does it include other diseases for which a medication that's a controlled substance, chronic pain, other kinds of substances would be required, right? So that if the conclusion is that this applies not just to people with opioid use disorder, but people who have any kind of a disease that would need a prescription of a controlled substance, if it is every disease imaginable, okay, then that would be answered. If it's not, then the question that I would like you to ask yourself the question, well, what are we zeroing in on a smaller population? Like, why are we singling out one disease or another specifically? I mean, again, this is as a village board, why would we do that, right? And then have that conversation out loud, like, why would we do that? Especially in the midst of, an epidemic of overdose and addiction that affects families in our community here, the people that we know, people in our families maybe. And so why would we pass a zoning law that would make it specifically more difficult for those folks to get access to treatment? So I would appreciate it if when you're deliberating, you're not simply trying to go from point A to point B, but you're asking yourselves some really good questions about, like, what fundamentally motivates us to do this, and how will this enhance the health and well-being of the families in our community, particularly those who are impacted by the disorders that we're talking about here. So again, I would appreciate it if when you have this conversation that you're able to examine that. And again, I just think again about how blessed this community would be to be a place where families living in this community are able to access services that they need in the community where they live. Thank you.
Piggybacking on that comment, I'd just like to everybody keep in mind this as well. There are already 2 methadone clinics within 5 miles of here. So I don't know how much undue burden is being placed by limiting Oasis to counseling services. I don't think anybody in this room has a problem with 822 counseling services. Where they have a problem is with an opioid treatment program. So bringing in the emotions, I understand that it's the sizzle, not the steak that sells, right? But let's keep in mind that we're not depriving people of opioid treatment, because I believe it's probably 2 options within 3 miles of here. And again, we're not heartless. We all recognize there's a problem, and we're all happy to pitch in and have the 822 program there. But we don't want to put a strain on the community by bringing in an OTP, which I am not convinced that we can adequately handle.
Turn it back.
My understanding is that we're here to discuss changes to the zoning code. And the fact that people are bringing up one specific agency should keep everyone's attention to the fact that the proposed revision would disproportionately impact one type of treatment provider. Let's not pretend that that's not what this proposed addition does. My understanding of the laws of this state and how case law is interpreted is that when a municipality has a comprehensive plan, any revision to that needs to be well thought and cannot discriminate against one particular individual or type of business. And that's what I believe that the proposed change today would do.
Thank you.
Is this similar, change in other municipalities in the state of New York? Is that correct? I understand Albany, for example.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is this similar zoning change in Albany as well? City of Albany?
Albany has this definition in their zoning, yes, they do.
Anyone else? Sure.
I just wanted to add that, not trying to piggyback off all of that, but realistically, the surrounding agency or the surrounding counties consistently have to bus or cab using Medicaid dollars their patients needing services for opiate addiction into Albany County because the surrounding counties has a dearth of treatment. So if we want to be fiscal stewards to the taxpayers, promoting adding another OTP in Albany County really doesn't make sense when there's a need in the surrounding counties. And by putting it in surrounding counties, it would decrease the tax burden on transporting patients from their other homes further away to get this treatment that already exists in 2 locations within Albany County, which we are part of.
Chuck. I'm sorry. How about you've had a chance to speak already? How about someone who hasn't spoke yet? Go ahead.
Is that me?
Yeah.
In terms of comprehensive plan, I understand I've written, God knows, too many comprehensive plans in my life. And I would like to say that I appreciate the board's willingness to consider new factors that come up that influence the comprehensive plan that we all had a chance to look at, understand, contribute to. At the time that plan was written, we had no idea we were going to have legalized marijuana. And I really appreciate the fact that our board, our elected board, has taken into consideration the new programs, the new needs of our community, et cetera, and and help us understand that the comprehensive plan is not a dead horse sitting on a shelf. It's really meant to embrace the new concepts that we have and do it in a way that listens to us. So I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you. In the back.
So, hi, good evening. My name is Tilly Rowe, and I'm the person in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is I haven't had a drink or drugs since February 6, 1995. I share that with you because the way the news works and the way publicity works is we talk about the overdose epidemic and we talk about all of the horrors of this disease. And what I would like to share with you is I have a disease of the brain that wants me dead. And so does every single other person who is still suffering from active addiction. What medication does is it helps people come off of the drugs and it protects them, it gives them an opportunity to make better choices in their lives. With 275 people dying daily, it affects 1 in 4 Americans. So all we have to do is look around this room to our neighbors, our family members, our council members, the attorney in the room, and see that everybody either has a family member, knows somebody, or has been to a funeral where a young person has passed away. Substance use disorder is a disease of shame. Family members are embarrassed to ask for help. They think that it's their fault. In 1996, when another controlled substance was introduced to the medical field, it was oxycodone and what's the other one? No, somebody help me out. The one who Purdue makes, I'm sorry, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
OxyContin.
OxyContin, thank you. When your high schooler got a knee injury on the football field, when they went to the doctor, the very well-meaning doctor prescribed an opioid to help that pain. And then after 3 doses, it changes the chemical molecular structure of your brain. So we've created this absolute horror story and mess, and we really need to throw everything at it. You know, it would be much more advantageous to the health of the community to embrace the treatment facility and work with them to take care of all of your concerns. I'll also say in closing, I'm also happen to be the executive director of Second Chance Opportunity. We run a recovery community center in Albany. We have about 55 state janitorial contracts. We employ over 114 people who are all in recovery, 97%. We have 17 buildings, all located on Morris Street in Albany County, where we house 77 people. Guess what? There's no police call. There's no fist fights. There's no trouble, because the type of people that we are working with want the help. The people coming to this outpatient treatment facility are desperate. They want the help. It's not the people that you have to be concerned about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
How are you? My name is Christopher Rossini. I'm also a person in long-term recovery, and I'm also the director of policy of Friends of Recovery New York. I'm here to voice my opposition to local law number 7. We believe in person-centered, evidence-based practices and depriving individuals of the necessary tools to support their recovery. It's not only cruel, but potentially deadly. Albany and adjoining counties currently outpace the state in overdose deaths. Medicated supported recovery or medication-assisted treatment is an essential tool for those struggling with opioid use disorder. Stigma is far too long stymied public health and addiction policy. We understand that individuals of this community have no doubt heard the countless horror stories surrounding poorly run clinics. However, we only hear about the problems, never the success stories. Millions of individuals are currently using some form of MSR, integrating back into the community. They are your neighbors, co-workers, friends, and family. For New York would be happy to work with the community, providing any further training or education they can to assist individuals in their understanding around individuals struggling with SUD. Fusion Recovery has already reached out to us in their aims to ingratiate themselves within the community. While attending the public hearing in May, I routinely heard from even the most stridently opposed to the opening of Fusion Recovery, the acknowledgement and desire for people struggling with SUD to get the help they need. And to that I say, be courageous, stand behind your words, and save a life by joining us in opposition to local law number 7. Thank you.
In the back.
Hi, I'm Darby. I'm a jail social worker working in reentry, so I help folks transition out of jail and prison back to the community. I'm also a researcher in this field. And this summer I've been doing a project talking to service providers across upstate New York who work in this field. Research has consistently shown that MAT saves lives. Medication-assisted treatment, which is the types of facilities that local law number 7 is adding that extra layer to be able to open in the community. A meta-analysis from 2018, pulling together 21 studies, showed that the rate of death for people dealing with opioid addiction is 15 times higher than the general population. For people with opioid use disorder, risk of overdose is 8 times higher for people who are not able to access medication-assisted treatment. Being forced to stop your MAT, which a lot of people have to do when they come out of a New York State jail or prison, which are now all legally required to have MAT, or coming from another area of the state where they do have MAT, coming from a place where they don't have it, you're not able to access it, increases the risk of death, especially in the first 2 weeks of that transition. Being able to access MAT is associated with a decrease in injection drug use, HIV infection, and major reductions in the death and overdose rate. Methadone is the most frequently used medication, and it's the hardest to find in upstate New York, all across upstate New York. Upstate and specifically Albany County also have higher rates of overdose deaths than the rest of the state. 2 weeks ago, we had a community panel discussion on recidivism up in Queensbury. We talked a lot about the difficulty of getting people connected to the MAT that they need because we have so few clinics across upstate, particularly methadone is really difficult to access. During the summer meeting with service providers across upstate, I've heard over and over again that we have nothing in upstate. We have so few treatment programs, everybody has a waiting list, and people are not able to access the treatment they need to get better and stay better. MAT and the need for better and more opioid treatment clinics is not just a problem in Albany and not just in upstate. MAT is actually used all over the world as the primary treatment for opioid use disorder and all over the US. For the last year, I also worked in Western Massachusetts with men in jail at MAT, where communities and governments are working together to expand MAT access and save more lives. MAT and treatment programs are finally doing something to reduce the opioid crisis, and MAT is the foundation to responding to the opioid epidemic. MAT is a necessary tool to help community members stay alive so that they have time to get access to other treatments, reconnect with family, get a job, and find stable housing. The research shows MAT is a tool to save lives, and I think it would be irresponsible for the Village of Menands to make it harder for people to access life-saving treatment at a moment when Upstate is trying to come together to rebuild our communities and the wreckage of the opioid epidemic. We would much rather you join with us, listen to community members who have struggled with opioid crisis, and because it does happen here and it is needed here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. In the back, please.
I was just wondering what the security measure is gonna be once they open, because I don't see that Fusion is gonna be stopped. I just don't think so. So what is the security measures that Menands has? Because Menands has two part-time police officers and 4 full? Like, what happens when people start overdosing because they're selling stuff? Like, it happens. I know everyone wants to hear like this great program, it's gonna be great, and we just need to be forward thinking.
So I don't mean to cut you off, but right now we're just discussing the local law. We're not talking about anything in
So
specific.
what's the local law? Like, I'm completely unfamiliar with what's happening.
Okay.
So if someone can.
So we've
explain that to me,
already
that'd be great.
explained it a couple of times tonight.
I just got here, so I didn't,
Okay.
I missed
We're,
it.
we're not gonna go back in time if you.
So is there a shortened version of what I could get to learn about the board? Because I don't have
If-
any information. And everybody here that lives in Menands knows what's going on except for me, because I'm new. So if you guys could like give me a link or something, that'd be great, so I can do my own research.
There's
Because
a
I moved
copy
here
of
2 years ago
the,
and I know nothing. I'm
there's
going in
a,
blind.
there's a copy of the local law that's being discussed tonight on the Village of Menands website. It's called
Okay.
Local Law 7. And there's a link to it. You can look at it there.
Okay, what's the website?
Villageofmenands.com.
Okay, and that will explain what the local law number 7 is?
Yes. Yeah.
Verbatim, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyway. Go ahead, Laura.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to say that I 100% support a local law 7, and thank you for the board for putting that forward. I'm the youngest child of a large family. I come from a long list of alcoholics.
Can you talk a little bit louder?
I understand the opioid crisis. I thank the people that came here to speak on behalf of recovering people. I think it's wonderful. I think the separation of what y'all don't understand because you don't live here is that we're in the process of revitalizing our small town. We have no bank, we have no drugstore, we have no restaurants, we have nothing here. And the main shopping center that we used to have a Price Chopper in is where this particular therapy place is being housed. It was unbeknownst to any of the residents when they moved in. We all are on board with recovery. Believe me, I've lived in my whole life, okay? It's not about that. It's about protecting the residents that live here in the village. And that's what the local law is about. And I really can congratulate the board, and I'm 100% support of the local law. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
I say something that, so my family grew up in Waterville. I grew up coming down here to Ted's Fish Fry with my grandmother. I lived on Broadway. I walk my dog at Albany Rural 3 to 4 times a week. And I used to shop frequently at the Price Chopper and the Rite Aid. And I know that that hurt people when they left. I know it hurt the community. And my point is, don't hurt people that are already struggling. And local law number 7 will continue to hurt people that are already struggling. Thank you.
Thanks. In the back, sir.
My name is Rudy Fernandez. I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means to me, I haven't had a substance abuse March 23rd, 2014. I'm here to support Fusion. And I'm not what you want to hear, like as far as like being politically correct or nothing like that, but I was that individual that Fusion, those facilities help. And 9.5 years later, I am a homeowner and I pay taxes. And why I say that is because my last run, in case you don't know, right? So my last firm was 3 bundles a day to get out of bed. That means 30 bags daily. And that wasn't even to get high. And if it wasn't for facilities like this, I wouldn't be the man I am today, married and owning my own home, right? And also in charge of 17 houses that I run, right? You know, so facilities like this do help. A lot of people want to hear all the horror stories, but we don't want to talk about the individuals that are living a life and being very successful in recovery. So why some of us is here to support, because me, like myself, I don't got high here in Menands. And I came from New York City to Albany, but I ran every street in every little town around here. So there is no protection. And there's not enough treatment where there is one here and 3 miles away. You can't stop the inevitable. Like, you can't stop it, you know? So this facility being there in place is actually protecting the community because it's a safe place. So maybe your house doesn't get robbed, right? Because people under the influence don't think straight. So what makes sense, though, is not really sense, you know? So a bright idea to us is really not a bright idea. But these medications stabilize them, and when they have a recovery coach or individuals that are in recovery that they could connect them to, you know, will maybe straighten out your facility, maybe straighten out your community. You know, so I mean, I'm here to support it, and it's not as negative as everybody thinking. There's a lot of good people in recovery, like myself.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, lady,
Nope,
yep.
Yes. In March of this year, this board adopted a comprehensive zoning plan detailing appropriate uses for properties throughout the village. The plan identifies portions of the community to allow medical facilities with site plan approval, including Broadway Business District. And yet, when a medical facility was working through the approval process at the state and local level, there was outrage as if the provider of medical services were evading the public when it was following all the steps prescribed to them by the village. The problem was not whether or not the provider was upfront about their intentions. The issue is a vocal minority not understanding that addiction care is medical care. I'm sure we've all read the Times Union article today, and I would like to state for the record that the Journal of Studies on Alcohol and Drugs published a study on the safety surrounding addiction treatment facilities and found the impact on crime to be similar to a liquor store and less frequent than a convenience or a corner store. Barron's and the New York Times reported in 2019 that drug treatment centers will not lower your property values after a study was conducted by the National Bureau for Economic Research. In case board members are wondering what decreases property values, increases safety risks, and potentially increases the taxes to a municipality, the answer is vacant buildings. And a vacant building is what Menands had for 7 years after Price Chopper closed. City and state reported today that the overdose death rate is up 300% from 2010. In the Capital District, we're experiencing the highest overdose numbers on record, with increases in the mid-20s over last year. Albany County is outpacing the state in its overdose deaths, and they're still passing resolutions to make the delivery of care more difficult. Working for Senator Harcum and the previous chair of the Committee on Alcoholism and Substance Use Disorder, I could not believe when during the pandemic, there were addiction care providers reporting they weren't being given masks because in some instances, they were not considered an essential service. Or during a time when the reporting of mental health and addiction challenges were at an all-time high, that detox beds are being taken offline in favor of COVID surge beds. These actions value some lives over others, which is fundamentally wrong. And they send a message to people who are struggling and in dire need of medical care that their lives matter less than others. I am sorry to the addiction field that I was caught off guard by these actions. Sadly, I have come to learn when working for someone who is open about his own recovery journey, it means I wasn't fully exposed to how alive and well stigma continues to be for those struggling with addiction. This proposal seeking to categorize addiction care as distinct and separate from other medical care is nothing more than stigma, and addiction care is medical care. End of story.
Thank you.
And I recommend that, and I'm Bob Reed from Menands, that we can identify if we are associated or paid by any entity to be here, who is the entity we're representing. I think that's fair for the trustees to hear that, because we have a lot of people that aren't from Menands here, where I believe firmly they should be able to testify. But it also, I think, be important for the trustees to know if they're representing some individual group, or whether they're being paid.
I'll volunteer. I'm here on my own. I'm not paid to be here. I read the TU article today and that piqued my interest. And all of the comments about the community, it's very concerning as a member of this community. Because the last I checked, there isn't a wall or a toll booth on Broadway to get into the town of Menands. And a zoning law shouldn't add this extra layer for one type of facility, one type of medical treatment provider, and not others. That is exactly the problem.
Okay, I mean, zoning laws are exactly to regulate what gets built where.
But not.
Nobody in this room is arguing, again, I keep hearing people saying, we need these facilities. You don't understand, we need these facilities. Yeah, we need these facilities. Not a single person who Mitch Bauman put the call to action out to, and I've seen his call to action on LinkedIn and other places where he's trying to turn out his people, and he's been very successful tonight. But to address this, nobody in this room is saying that we shouldn't have OTPs. Not a single person here has made an argument as to why that location, perhaps you did, empty building, why that location is the right place for an OTP. I agree with this gentleman back here. These people aren't thinking straight when they come in here. And to address your issue before, as far as the zoning code goes, we don't even have to have a new law, because an OTP doesn't fit the old zoning regulation. The Menands zoning code calls or defines a business and professional office as an establishment used for organization or administrative aspects of a trade or use in conduct of profession or business and not involving manufacture, storage, display, or direct retail sale of goods. Offices used by physicians or other similar medical personnel for the treatment and examination of patients shall be conducted solely on an outpatient basis with no overnight patients kept on premises. For the purposes of this chapter, an urgent care facility shall not be considered a business and professional office. Now take that and compare it to OASIS definition of an OTP. Opioid treatment programs are OASIS and federally certified sites where medication to treat opioid use disorder is administered. In addition to medications, these programs also offer numerous services and supports, including but not limited to counseling, educational services, medical screening and care, mental health care, and referrals to social services. Given these definitions, it's evident that a business and professional office, as defined in our zoning code, differs fundamentally from an OTP as defined by OASIS. With Fusion operating as an OTP, they're anticipated to offer a multitude of services that do not comply with the zoning code's definition of a business and professional office. And this discrepancy, I'm not sure where this, actually, I do think I know where this discrepancy originates at, but that's a legal issue, and I'm not going to talk about that. But in terms of this whole OASIS thing, you don't have to worry about being retroactive. They already don't comply.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
And we're going to try and get to people who haven't talked yet. We have to move on, so. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of tension in the room. I could feel it, the gentleman who just spoke before, the last gentleman, he was down there speaking while the public hearing was going on. I couldn't hear what this young lady to my right was saying, so I politely told him, I can't hear the young lady. What did you tell me? Too bad. So obviously, there's a lot of tension in the room. I'll tell you from my perspective, I woke up in an alley I woke up in an alley 40 years ago. I was fortunate there was treatment where I could get for myself that saved not only my life, but my family's life. Today, people aren't waking up in alleys, they're dying in alleys.
I also was the town of North Greenwood supervisor, and I was a Rensselaer County legislator. So I understand the predicament that you folks are in, up in front. What we used to have to do, because we had issues like this come before us all the time. What we had to do back then was we had to really take an honest look in our hearts and soul. What was the best thing for everyone? What was the best thing for humanity? What was the best thing for our town and our county? We really had to take an honest look at that. It sometimes took us days and weeks of debates, but that's where we were coming from. And I will tell you that, like John said before me, if it's just that you want to keep treatment out of Menands, I believe you're looking at the wrong thing. Because then you got to look at other medical services as well. So when you look at this, folks, all I ask you is look, not one neighborhood, one street, 5 streets. Look at what's good for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi, I am a resident of Menands, and I am in approval of local law number 7. And I think all these people that aren't from Menands that came in tonight, you should have been at the other meetings that were going on, because it's been said 100 times, we're not against treatment. We know it's necessary, and there's treatment close by, and we just think that's the wrong place for it.
Thank you. Steve, if
I just wanted to reiterate the reason why there's high wait times in Albany County, again, is because all of the counties surrounding Albany do not have the level of care. So the Albany County residents are stuck on waiting lists because we're treating patients from out of county because they have no other option. And the difference between a normal medical office, and I didn't mean it that way, a medical office where there's a physician, is they don't administer opiates on the premises. They prescribe it. And MAT also has that option of a prescribed mod and not administering the medication. And that's a better and a safer option.
All right, anyone else?
Well, I just want to say I'm not from Menands, right? Like I said, I already explained to you a little bit, right? But I'm here to support it because I think besides me and a few others, I'm actually the expert over here. So I know what actually works instead of giving my opinion of what works and what don't work. So the reality of it is that we just don't want it here because of what it is. So they just put it out there. So I'm here to support against that because those things do save life.
Thank you.
Hi, me again. Kelly Rowe.
Something very quick. We're going to move on.
I just wanted to add, my last DWI was right here on Broadway. Officer Duda arrested me. I swore my civil rights were abandoned. And the judge allowed me to go back to treatment and saved my life. And I've been sober ever since.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Village Corner Partner.
All right, let's close the public hearing. Time is 6:46. We're gonna move you up. Chief.
Okay, so this is Nick Orso. I'm looking for approval to hire him full-time. Nick started as a police officer in 2013. He currently works for the Greene County Sheriff's Department, and obviously he interviewed with us, and he'd like to lateral to our department.
Sounds good. Any questions from anyone on the board? His resume is included in the board package.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
What's his last name? So.
Orso.
R-S-O. Name sounds familiar for some reason, but it'll come to me.
I would ask this.
I was gonna say that. I move that we appoint Nicholas Orso to the Menands Police Department.
Thank you. Thank you, board.
Anyone?
Second.
Thank you, everybody.
All those in favor?
I need a minute because we switched everything around.
Okay, sorry. Nick, you can hang out for the next 3 hours if you want to, but.
Or this is your chance.
This is your chance to get away. So,
I'm sorry, who made?
right. Seth and Nick.
Seth and Nick.
Back down.
We'll talk about that.
Where are we going?
Okay,
We're gonna do a pre-site presentation for 96 Menands Road, Daughters of Charity site.
Hi, good evening, Andy Frick from the Brick Law Firm. I know you have a real long agenda, so we'll be real brief. I'm here on behalf of the Daughters of Charity, who own the property at 98 Menands Road, 24.7 acre parcel. They currently operate a convent there, and we received a use variance from the zoning board of appeals to construct an assisted living facility, as well as cottages on the property. We received both a height variance, an area variance, and a use variance for the parcel. We also received a secret negative declaration. The zoning board of appeals acted as lead agency. We're here tonight to introduce our request for a site plan from you. Our site plan application has been provided. It's a two-phase project. The first phase will be construction of a four-story building in the northwest corner of the property, if you're familiar with it. It's a 78 independent living units, 28 assisted living units, and 36 memory care units. Phase two of the project will involve a demolition of the existing convent on the property and transition of the nuns who are there now into the building that's constructed. And then phase two will involve completion of the 56 individual cottage units that will be independent senior living that will be dispersed throughout the property. We're here tonight again to request you to consider the site plan application, hopefully set a public hearing on our application. We believe it's complete. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Sister Nancy Murphy and Sister Teresa George to introduce the project from their perspective.
Thank you. We'll keep it as brief as we can.
All right, amen.
As he said, we're asking for you to review this plan for us, and we just thought we'd give you just a little bit of the background of why we're here, why we're doing this. As we noted, this property regards 98 Menands Road. The Daughters of Charity purchased this property in the 70s, the early 70s, and we've been living there since then. Hundreds of Daughters of Charity have gone through this property, but our presence in Albany and northern New York has gone on for 200 years, where we've ministered, we've served, we've been teachers, social workers, parish ministers in this community. The sisters that are living there now have spent most of their community life. Most of them are New Yorkers, except the ones with the weird Boston accents. They're all up here because they want to be near families and their friends and in a place they call home. What we have discovered in the last, as we've looked at what's happening in religious life, we're looking at our future and seeing a decline in the number of sisters, an aging of those sisters, and really an inability to continue to run this property the way that we have since we moved in. And we've provided a senior care there. We've got about 60 sisters on the campus now. That number is just going to keep coming down. But the cost of operating the campus is going up and up. And we just are looking into our future and knowing we can no longer continue to support this kind of expenditure for the care of our sisters, and yet we want to have them in a place they call home. We want to have them in a place where they're getting good quality care and they can continue to live community life, which is essential to our vowed life as Daughters of Charity. We started this project looking at this about 3.5 years ago. We first wanted to see if there was something else that we could do just with ourselves. And after almost a little over a year, it took us to turn to a plan that enabled us to partner with Franciscan Ministries. And so you're seeing a plan that is now part of that partnership, this collaborative arrangement where our sisters will be able to live there on the campus for as long as we will be here. I'm looking at 20 years and saying, you know, our numbers are we're going to have sisters there. And at the same time, we can share this campus with lay people who are also looking for quality senior living. I think she said everything. Yay for you. You don't have to hear me talk. All right. And we will answer questions. I think that you know you all have gotten to have seen this guy. So, he's gonna go through some of the engineering. We've got some, I think, some cool fly-throughs to show you what this is gonna look like. And we'll respond to any questions that you have at the end of their presentation. That's okay.
Thank you very much, Sister Teresa and Sister Nancy. I'm not going to say much. You're very short on time today. We'll have an opportunity to present it at a public hearing in the future. It undertook a significant review by your village designated engineer. Major issues here with stormwater management, made significant changes on that. We reduced the number of cottages to provide more green space. The
original
large
number-
building that was defined up here as the
Was what?
assisted living, independent living and memory care. And it's a great project. I don't want to go into further details. I could talk for an hour here, but you don't want to hear me. So I'm going to turn it over to,
The ZBA process was how long?
16 months.
16 months.
So
I had a lot of opportunity to speak there.
But so they addressed the the buffering and all that kind of, all that kind of information.
What do you mean by the
Sure.
buffer?
Just, the between the other properties that abut, so they have maybe a wood lots and Dan knows what the screening, et cetera.
Yeah. We've shown a significant amount of screening on the site. We arranged the site to be as far as it could from the Sage Estates people down here. We moved these units away, give more buffers for the people that live at the end of Sage Estates. We've been very careful and lay out the minimum impact on our joiners. And if you want to take a look at the brief fly around, I think it will show you that.
We have simulations, very brief. that
can
show you.
we do that, Don?
Gary, do you want? Hey, Pete?
Yeah, so
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Am I coming in?
oh, it's quick. Okay. Yes.
So hey, good evening everyone. Yeah, so my name's Peter. I'm with Perkins Eastman. Colleague Jerry is sitting with you now. We produced a couple of these animations. The first one I want to show you is looking at our project in its full build out form. And these animations were done in terms of developing the existing surroundings and seeing how our project was going to kind of stitch into that. So in this video, we're going to begin at ground level as though we were looking at Sage Estates entrance. And then I'm going to shoot us into the sky about 95 feet. And we're going to kind of pan over our project. That includes the cottages and the main building. And then I'm going to move west on Menands Road as we head up to Van Rensselaer. So again, here we are looking at Sage Estates as the entrance. We're on Menands Road. We're kind of climbing up into the sky, and you're starting to see, if you can see my mouse, the first glimpses of our cottages over in the right-hand side, and then peeking up around 3 o'clock is our building, our taller 4-story building. So as we keep moving up, you'll notice the houses that are within Sage Estates, the green space that we're maintaining between their rear yard and the beginning of our buildings, and that sort of body of water that's moving is what Dan had referred to as our stormwater management area. And we were very sensitive to the view and protecting that from the Sage Estates. As you were kind of coming across here, I'm just going to pause for a quick second. You're kind of getting a first glimpse of our service entrance that would lead in. Along Menands Road, as everyone I'm sure in the room knows, we have really large old growth trees. Those are to be maintained. We are not demolishing them. And they provide a great level of screening before you actually get into seeing the structures beyond. And we specifically designed the low-rise 1-story cottages to be front-facing on the street so that it has a residential feel as you kind of move through Menands Road. And here you have a very understated entrance coming into the property. You can see how we've kind of created a small pocket neighborhood flanked by our larger horseshoe-shaped 4-story independent living. And then immediately behind that, we have an assisted living 2-story structure. Now, the orientation of these bigger buildings was very specific in that there is a large hill that exists. So we're actually building into the hill to further reduce the sort of height experience one may have as they're driving down Menands Road. And we're kind of coming up to the intersection at Van Rensselaer at this height right now, kind of panning back, looking east, seeing the larger building in relationship to the smaller cottages as they line the property. And then beyond that, like I said, was Sage Estates. So that's a really big picture, bird's eye view of the full build out proposal. If we want, we can move on to some other videos if the schedule permits.
Why don't we handle that at site plan review?
No problem. Absolutely. Sure.
Tall as the building. So a lot of that old growth is in front of there and is still creating that screening around that old development. Materials are residential. As you'll see at site plan review, you tell us if that's tough for this meeting or not.
That was a cool video.
And we have more. We'll show you the public hearing, but we would ask if you would consider setting the public hearing for us and move forward. That'd be great.
Set that for the next meeting.
Next meeting, Don?
Yep.
Okay, do we need a motion to set that meeting?
Yes.
21st, at the 21st?
Yes.
Yes.
Make a motion, we set a public hearing for, Menands Road on the 21st of August.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much. See you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys. Okay, we need a motion for the minutes for July 17th.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Warrant number 5, general, $219,849.79. Water, $58,508.60. Sewer, $28,628.95, totaling $306,987.34. Payroll number 5, $226,187.06.
I'll make a motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Before we do the transfers, I forgot, during the public hearing to, admit into the record the 3 letters we received from ASAP NYS, Legal Action Center, and a letter from the Office of Addiction Services and Supports. Those will be available for FOIL should someone request them, but they will be submitted.
And they're in the minutes.
So they don't have to be read into the record?
They do not, thank God. But, they're long. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Transfers, full-time patrolman, $31,856 to lieutenant, $17,418 for negotiations. Supervisor, from this, all these are for the after the negotiations and the contract being signed. Supervisor, $14,438. Police chief, $6,603. From the, from the contingency account, $72,418. $6,603 was for the police chief. $16,544 was for the foreman. Laborers for DPW was $24,472. There's 2 laborers here. I'm not sure why there's 2, but there's laborers number 2.
Account numbers.
It's for $24,799. Court miscellaneous, 1,000, for court equipment, 1,000. Unallocated insurance, 950, to building insurance, 950. From the contingency account, 14,000 for police equipment miscellaneous. It's for the officer's camera grant for 11,000. Economic development community events, $3,000. The water fund contingency account, $11,915. Labor negotiation, $11,915. Contingency account, $20,000. Miscellaneous control, it's the new SCADA system that was purchased last year for $20,000. And those are your transfers.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, there's two, transfers that the treasurer wants, someone to read those for the, one's for the body cameras, and the other one is for the JCAP money.
Resolution number 240031. The treasurer requests the board amend the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget to cover the cost of purchasing body cameras for the police department. A Department of Criminal Justice Services grant for $38,000, which the village received on February 24th, 2023, and is in the unappropriated fund balance to cover the costs. He requests that account A.120.0208 be increased by $38,000. I move to approve said transfer.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Who wants to do the next? You want to do it?
Sure. Resolution number 240032. The treasurer requests the board amend the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget to cover the cost of work done for the court, which a JCAP grant of $23,000 was received on March 28th, 2023, and is in the unappropriated fund balance. He requests that account A.1620.0414 building equipment repairs be increased by $23,000. I move to approve said transfer.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Menands Garden Apartments, was issued a wrong water bill for their sewer and water. They gave us the reading that was on the meter, but they forgot to include a zero, which made them they used more water than they did, and that's why they did these.
Which periods were these?
It was the last period.
The most recent, so they haven't paid anything on
They
it.
haven't paid anything yet. They are gonna pay the late fee.
Someone read the whereas?
Here. Whereas water and sewer account number 51-129-0 for 14 McDonald Circle, water charges were based on incorrect usage. Now therefore be it resolved that a total of $35,585.30 from water will be adjusted off 14 McDonald Circle current bill, and be it further resolved that a total of $13,984.27 from sewer will be adjusted off 14 McDonald Circle's current bill. And I move that said resolution be adopted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
My understanding is that, this is an error they made because they read it themselves instead of having our guys do it. We're gonna do it ourselves.
They're gonna send us a picture of the meter and that's gonna be the reading.
Okay, all right.
Not
taking their, okay,
Right.
all right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
I agree, Tim.
We also need to do it for the next one.
Sure. So resolution 240034. Whereas water and sewer account 51-130-0 for 14 McDonald Circle Building 17's water charges were based on incorrect usage. Now therefore be it resolved that a total of $42,613.58 from water will be adjusted off 14 McDonald Circle's current bill, and be it further resolved that a total of $38,55 from sewer will be adjusted off 14 McDonald Circle's current bill.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
You want to talk about?
John, we're gonna go to, Clifford. You're here for, we're here for what, is this pre-site plan review?
I'm not, I think so. We were all approved and Lyle approved everything for the meeting, so I'm not really sure.
On the application, everything's in, so I think the honor.
Oh, okay, did Matt say anything about, so,
Well, we're on for new business, we want to kind of review that.
okay,
That's 18A. 18A. Sorry, whole business number, Mike, this is 18A.
got it, okay. Why don't we have you present now? Do you have a long presentation? Okay.
My name is Dominic Rico, Rico Associate Representative of Hudson Davis, who is my property owner, present property owner, and his brother on the property. It's on Clifford Road, towards the end, almost towards the end, there's two existing 4-unit apartments there now. What proposes to add 4 more 4-unit apartments, so it'll be a total of 24 units altogether. The total, we received variances from the zoning board for a setback of this building here and for 4 more units that we're only allowed 20 by code by the zoning density. We have that variance to allow for the 24 units. The reason for this setback here is through the zoning negotiations, we did have building back here, we didn't need a setback. But with neighbors' comments and going through the zoning board, we shifted the buildings, connected them together. We had set up a building similar to this spread out over the site. But as you see, it reduced the site significantly and it dents a little bit more. It's okay. There'll still be 4 individual buildings with firewall between the 2. The other, let's see, so, and then this area back here is that's pretty much remaining as is. So those are the variances we received from the board. The site is just a little over, I think it's 1 point. Right. 1.6 acres up there. So we're disturbing, none of this up here is really going to disturb except for redoing the drive entrance. So we're disturbing even less than an acre of land to do this project to begin with. Installing all new parking. One thing we did do zoning board, we actually put the dumpster over in this area. Drainage is fairly much going to be sheet drained towards the back. We may have to have some kind of a culvert at some point to collect for drainage or just for elevation. And it'll drain back to the ditch along the ramp for 378.
Do you have to go to DOT to, I mean, isn't that theirs? Is that?
No, we're not gonna be draining into it. That's where everything drains now. It's just gonna continue to drain to the same spots. But it does.
So you don't have to go to DOT for that?
No, I'm not going onto the property. I mean,
yeah, but if the water goes onto the property, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you're draining onto DOT right away.
Well, it's draining there now.
That'll be handled by the village engineer.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I was just asking.
It's not that much more, but it is more, but it's not gonna be, because of the land area is so small, DOT is not gonna have but we can.
Well, I mean, you are putting more impervious surface there. Now, you said the variance was to get 4 additional units from 20 to 24. That was.
Yeah, we went from.
Why was there a necessity to get 4 more units?
It was.
I know, I'm just asking what the necessity for the 4 additional units.
Where is this located?
Clifford Road.
They had 15 units per acre. I'm trying to it was just to get the extra 4 units we could get them on the site.
My recollection, if I can jump in, because I was at the zoning, was that there's a calculation where you get a certain number of units per acre. And they needed relief for 3.5 units.
Yeah, it's allowed, we're allowed 12 per unit, 12 units per density, and we asked for 15.
Yeah. So,
Because to get one more building, we couldn't do one, half a building. I couldn't remember, sorry, I apologize. But, and then the setback variance again is just that they asked us to push the building back a little bit further and pull them over from here, so we increased that setback for, I believe he's considering that as front yard.
and the setback was, I think, I
40.
remember 14 feet versus 15 feet is required.
No, it was because he turned it into, it was as a side yard or a rear yard, but he turned it into a front yard and made it 40 feet, so it would end up being, instead of 40 feet, it was 14.8 or something like that. Water and sewer is available on Clifton Road. We haven't put those utilities out with DPW as of yet, but they've been surveyed in, so there.
Did you resolve the dumpster issue?
Yep, we moved it over here.
Will it have an enclosure?
Yes.
What'll it be made out of?
Well, I'm not sure what it'd be made of. We can make it.
There's requirements, in the code, so.
Yeah.
Take a look.
And it'll match the colors in the building and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
He said they did a variance for it to be in the front yard, and now he's saying there's gonna be a dumpster in the front yard. Right, so the area that you're talking about where the dumpster is, what you're saying was considered the front yard of that building.
This line here.
Where you said the dumpster was going to be, you were saying that you had to get a setback variance of the front yard. So now you're saying there's
I
gonna be a
believe he was calling that.
dumpster.
Yeah, it was over here. It's in the front yard, but it's not. Are you asking if it's in the setback, beyond the setback?
What you're telling me is being considered the front yard of that building.
Yes, yes.
What they were saying was, for purposes of setback requirements, the Board of Zoning Appeals regarded that as the front yard, which has a certain under the zoning ordinance. It's maybe it's 40 feet, and they had to get a variance.
Yeah.
It's not really the front yard, but it was considered that for setback purposes. Right.
So we need to set this for a public hearing?
Yeah.
For site plan.
Do you want to do it, right at the other one?
Yeah. So we need.
Say you want to do it the same night?
Yeah. Marathon. Let's get through. I need to know, stop from power box.
I move to, set the public hearing for, August 21st for the 50 to 56 Clifford Road apartments.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
I just ask a quick question.
Thank you.
Public hearing, great. Is the information prior going to be available on this before the actual night of the hearings?
I get it.
Like the size of the units, how many bedrooms, low-income housing, subsidized by the government, who's building the project? Is that information going to be available
John,
prior
you want to answer any of
to
those
public
now?
hearing?
I can answer that now if you want.
I don't have all the questions. Is it low-income housing?
No.
Is it, how many bedrooms per unit?
2.
On every floor? Okay. But again, all information will be given to have prior
The
to
buildings
this.
are pretty much exactly the same buildings that are there, just gonna be new. So he wants to build the exact same building, doesn't want to change. Instead, so that helps.
We're just adding 18
More and more buildings, yes.
Yeah.
60, yes. But everything else is the same.
Thanks, Don.
Okay?
We'll try and see, whatever they submit to us.
Tyler approved, or you think about it?
No, he's not, that's not that much money. It's your private.
We'll put on the website whatever they send.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. But I can,
What's next?
The SRO.
Okay, after, negotiating and discussing with the, Menands school, we have worked out, an agreement regarding the community resource officer. After a few legalities, we have finally come to terms on an agreement between the village and the school. And, for us, it is, hopefully for us to approve tonight, and then it's, going before the school the 14th, I believe.
yes.
they should have an officer in the school starting September 1st.
Yeah, around there. We were with Jen today. There's some professional development we want him to do with the teachers, so around that time.
So the board has had the opportunity to review the agreement that was acceptable by both Steve and the council for, the school. This has been, a long time in the works between both entities. And, as we talked about before, it's a great addition to the community for the protection of our students and teachers. So would someone like to make a motion?
You need a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the contract on behalf of the village.
I'll make the motion on behalf of, the mayor signing the agreement, community resource officer agreement with the Menands school district.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Thank you.
All right.
We're jumping all over.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Say it again.
Forum?
Oh, yeah. All right. Does anyone have anything for, open forum? All right, Phil, you got any?
Hello, hi. Yeah, I just had one item I wanted to raise. I think now's probably the appropriate time. So Scott Hobson, I'm a resident of Menands. My wife and I have lived here for 5 years. We love the community. We love the neighborhood. We started a family. And so I wanted to just raise for the village the idea that there should be a playground in South Menands. There's at least 2 suitable sites. And it feels like the community would benefit from having a common area where families can gather and kids can play. Really would help bring the community together, kind of act as a heart and soul, and give kids something to do around here other than get in trouble. So, yeah, I wanted to raise that for consideration. I think it'd be a great asset to the community.
Scott, that's something that we're working on. I plan a working group of residents in that area to help work with our engineer on a possible plan. Okay, if you'd like to be part of that, that would be super.
Sure. Yeah, great. Absolutely. Thank you.
That info and we'll be reaching out shortly.
I've already done a little bit of research on grants with Britt from Labella, so when the time comes, I'm happy to share that.
Yeah, I'd appreciate the opportunity to be part of that. I think it's desperately needed. So I'm glad to hear that it's moving in the right direction. Happy to help however I can.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
2 things. Now, while I'm visiting, east end of Kenmore Road, I've noticed there's one dead end sign, needs to be replaced. But before this project can be done, the plants, brush, and trees have got to be removed from that old dead end sign and the signpost before the current dead end sign can be replaced. Because motors can barely see that the old dead end sign. So I've been getting on after the village about this, for the last few years, and I think it's time those trees and plants be removed from that old dead end sign and replace it with a new one along with a signpost. Now, second, I'm unhappy, just like everyone else in Menands, that our public library has been closed since August 4th, 2023, because of some electrical system problem. Now, I don't know how this happened. We spent a lot of money, to rehabilitate the library. Now all of a sudden it's got electric problem. And we'd like to know is there any updates on when the electric system is going to be repaired and when it's the library going to be open? Does anyone got any idea?
It's a National Grid problem. It's not the library. It's a problem with National Grid, and they're working on the problem.
Will it be done this week?
I have no idea. They don't know.
Because we've been told they were supposed to have that done during last week. It's still not been done. But thanks for letting me speak. I'm done.
August 10th.
August 10th?
They're gonna open. That's what when they're hoping to reopen.
All right, well, thanks. I'll look forward to it because like a lot of people, we don't like to have to go to a library somewhere else. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm done for now.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else, open forum, go ahead. Wait, Chuck, we're gonna hit Laura first. Sorry.
Okay, yep,
Sorry.
so I'll make it quick and I'll only pick one of the two subjects I want to talk about tonight. I'll save the second one for next meeting. But the first one is just about, I was here 3 months ago or 2 months ago and talked about the trains. And I know Donnie's been calling CSX about the deflection on the tracks, especially where we experienced a considerable amount of flooding by the park. Now, I know those tracks are moving more than they're supposed to be, whether they inspect it or not, but considering the derailment in Montgomery County, we still have not had a safety meeting on that block, because if both intersections are blocked, the new families with all the babies, they do not know how to get out. They do not know how to get out. And what's the plan? Sorry, Brian, did you lose your contact?
No, I needed a little mint for energy.
But anyway, remember we had talked about this before the election about doing a safety exit
So
for the families. And
talk with Ryan. We're gonna schedule something this fall.
do we have a plan though? Like,
Well, there was a plan in place before. We
right,
have the
no, I know. But
We
is
have
it
the
still,
plan.
is the path still cleared?
Yeah.
And is the access through Sages still
Yes.
attainable? Actually, I still am trying to figure out who has the key to the gate.
Well, every police car, every fire truck, and which gate?
The one on the top of the hill.
Top of Wortman?
Yeah.
And there's two locks on there. There's a Knox box, so every EMS, fire department that comes down can access that lock, and there's also a village lock on there
Right,
too.
and I hope you saw the pictures from the
Yep.
derailment that had empty tanks on them. They were quite frightening to see that.
So we're gonna run through a full safety drill, just to see what happens when we have a potential emergency, and Don will take care of, again, contacting CSF or CP Rail, and making sure they come to
And
it.
I noted to Don that that culvert down by Menands Road seems completely plugged up. They really
That
go
was,
there.
that was addressed. I talked to Mike Tracy. And hey, Laura, just so you know, and this is what the police officer, the CX or the CP Rail police officer told me. There's a person that goes down the tracks and inspects the tracks from
Right.
Albany all the way to Saratoga.
How often?
Every day.
He's, that's amazing that he hasn't seen this.
I'm telling you
Okay.
what, I'm just the messenger. Don't fill the messenger. I'm just-
I'm not. Okay.
The trains come down loaded in the morning. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning when the loaded trains come through.
Yeah.
That's when you actually, I know that it's happening then, because we actually measured it back when we were fighting about the heavy oil. We literally put a device on the tracks.
Okay,
Measured the derailment. Sorry, I can't hear you.
we'll
Thank you.
recontact them. Yeah. Bill?
I had a couple things, and Laura mentioned, I think at the last meetings, possibly unfortunate to have the lights on my side street put in place by National Grid.
That was my second.
These things glow in the dark through my house.
Yes.
I have pictures I'd be happy to share.
Yes.
It lights up right, I have shades drawn, right? If you open up a shade or a blind to get summer air in, it lights up my entire house with no lights on.
Correct. That's
Stole
correct.
by the guy, no, it's downward shouting, everything else. These are not the lights that we were told when we approved all this back in the day, that were gonna be the same bulbs, the same kind of yellow lighting, whatever the luminance of that. They are not. They are bright like the sun. And I have two of them now on the side street at Hampton. They haven't done Wolford yet. I'm just kind of worried that the two that are getting in front of my house on that side, I'm sure you can see it in the face. These things are beyond bright. I really hope you reach out to someone at National Grid and say, this is not what was proposed. This is not what we agreed to. This is not what was told to Clerk Handerhan, because everyone said they were going to be the same type of lumen or the same type of yellowish, and they're not.
Well, that,
They're beyond bright.
the yellow part was never what was proposed.
It was an energy savings, LED light.
And that's
I
true. We
was
get
$4.
12 lights for the energy of one before. The wattage is the same. It's just a different type of light. And I completely agree with that.
They glow in the dark.
I
Well,
agree
it's the
with that.
lumen, and the lumen, they're not being I don't believe they're telling you the truth, but I'm gonna get a device to measure it, because right now you're probably at 5 Kelvin, because it's not hot, it's Kelvin.
Whatever.
5,000
Right.
Kelvin,
I picture,
4,000
let me have
Kelvin,
picture.
3,000 lumen should be like candlelight, which is more of a yellow that you're looking for. And they're not 3,000 lumen. There's no way that's 3,000 lumen on my house that is blinding.
I talked to one of the crews today when I inquired, and the guy actually told me they're actually the lowest one they have was just 2,500.
They're saying.
And he said, but he did tell me, and I said, are you installing the shields? And he said, that you would need to request to have a shield put on. So that means it has to be a request sent to the village office, and the village will send it to the contact at National Grid, and they will put the blind on, the
It's a partial
deflector.
blind.
It doesn't, yeah, I saw it,
It's daylight out there, Paul. It's
but,
daylight.
you know, I asked about a diffuser, and he said the diffuser will actually send the light upward.
Correct, it's our skylights.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I had two more little things, and I just want to finish
So
up.
everybody
you all
just
get out of here.
call, you know, if you need one, if it's outside your window, you gotta put the request in, so you go to National Grid, and they will put it on. So, yeah.
I believe they're 25 lumen.
There were a few projects presented tonight. I know I briefly mentioned the guy that was here just talking about the Clifford Road. The Daughters of Charity have one going on. There's a few other projects in North End. Are any of these projects have applied for pilots for the IDA? Do you know that what's going on with the town of Colony and what's happening in the village? Does anybody from the board sit on the Colony IDA?
Yeah.
How are you notified that a pilot is being put in place? And let me say, pilots, right, paying in lieu of taxes, these companies come in, they ask them for a break because they don't want to pay taxes, which directly affects one, and I'm talking as a resident, but it'll affect my taxes too, as a school taxpayer. It's gonna affect everyone. But these pilots come in, these multi-million-dollar projects, and they're getting pilots. It affects the long-term rate of every taxpayer in the village. And I sincerely hope that you're reaching out to the town and asking them who's applied for a pilot and who's granting those pilots. The school, as well as the village, has a seat at the table, and you can voice the opposition to pilots. I'm really not in favor of a pilot program. Personally, I can't speak on behalf of the school board, but we have a meeting coming up next week, and I encourage you all to attend. If none of you have a seat at the table, I request that someone.
So the Colony IDA communicates with me about every project that has come and applied for any type of financial assistance. And that includes if it's at the federal level, for instance, the low income or workforce housing, either it's a 4% or 9%.
Understood. It doesn't tell me where the business fits on a pilot or allowing the pilot to happen, but if you're being advised, I would just ask that you share the information. Last thing I have is.
So for instance, I'm sorry, Bill, for instance, Soldier On is is via a federal program for the veterans. So they're receiving, I think, a 9%, whatever, a 9%, federal program grant through, I think it's DASNY. They get housing credits because it's low income, veteran related, et cetera. So that will have a pilot attached to it. And that was already discussed at the board level, because the impact for the school is zero because they're all veterans, and one veterans. So there's an example of one that has a pilot attached to it.
Actually, I knew that one, but there's some other new ones that are on the slate coming into.
So far, no pilots have been presented to the.
Last thing I said, there were some emails that came through on one of the 4 requests that came back on information. It's my understanding that there's an advisory board set up to communicate or advise on fusion. Was that board picked by you guys? And
it will be, and it has not yet.
It has not yet.
We're going to discuss at the board level the candidates, and we've got some in mind, I believe, of ones that would be appropriate. And we're going to talk about that hopefully the next meeting.
Thank you, Brian.
In the back. Sorry, John.
The stormwater that comes down Menands Road with 378 goes into the storm sewers. It doesn't seem like it goes into the railroad ditch like it used to. That's a lot like the road.
I talked to CC Rail and asked them I told them that we need to get that cleaned out because it's all overgrown and it's all you know, we could.
Completely plugged up.
We're waiting for them to do it, and, you know, working with them is not the easiest thing in the world.
Because it seems it blows out of the storm sewers into the road.
Yeah.
Buzzy, is that it? We're good? Don, you're gonna put in the. Okay. Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to give you guys a copy of my, comments from the public hearing, might come in useful at the executive, meeting tonight, and also over at Fusion Recovery, probably should have left this up there too. This would be more of the building inspector. I assume that having an open soffit is okay. It's hard to see in that picture, but you have exposed wires there as well.
Yeah, so just so I can just tell you, they're supposed to be starting construction on all the facades sometime very soon.
Okay.
That will not be like that the day that they open.
Okay, and you can just pitch that. Thanks.
Is that it? Okay.
So I'm a resident on 34 Clifford Road, and I've been at these zoning board meetings for Davis Properties and their proposal to open up their 4 additional units. I just wanted to request on this end, can we get a traffic sign, a permanent one? It was wonderful that there was a temporary one in there for probably a month ago to let people know there's a speed limit on the street, but we do notice once that's been removed, these people are flying up and down the street, pretty much every day. It might be residents that live on Clifford. It might be people that are just trying to avoid traffic lights on other roads to then use, I think it's now Station Avenue in the back there. I mean, these people are really going quite quick in there. There's a lot of kids that play in the neighborhood, and then just kind of trying to be more proactive, because if they're talking about having 16 more units, that's going to be a total of what? 34 more cars coming in potentially in there. Because they already said they're gonna have 2 parking spots per unit. So I just want to put that request in formally on this end to actually have a permanent speed sign, on Clifford.
Not one at the beginning?
No, she's talking about the trailer, like a trailer.
Tells you your speed. A permanent one?
Yeah, we need like,
That's
just
about-
a sign that says, here's the speed limit here, because that's what's missing on Clifford right now.
The one that flashes.
Not one that flashes, just something where it's gonna say the speed limit here is 25 or 30, whatever that's gonna be
Yeah, that
here.
already. Yeah. There's no speed sign on Clifford.
I can
We'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Either direction. So we need 2 more.
Yeah, we'd have to look, but I don't remember that one being.
I thought there was, I could be wrong.
I know there was a plan on redoing, Menands Road. I don't know when that's gonna happen, but I don't know, was there any thought on them kind of looking at the pitch on the sides of the road? Cause that's always kind of been a nightmare. Of course, it's as you go further up the road towards Arch, the humps into people's driveways is really not designed well. Most cars bottom out on them, especially when the road first gets done. I know you want to get it repaved. I want it repaved. I live on that road and it's full of potholes. Something that's been done in 20 years, but I really think they need to take 5 minutes and take a look at how to design the road better so that it's done properly. And
So after we got the quote from Callahan, on a contract, Molly and I talked about, rearranging some of the paving so that we took advantage of when the trees on Brookside go dormant, so that we don't have to come back twice and trim them. Trimming them in the fall is when it's desired, so that you don't shock the tree. So we are gonna put off, doing Brookside until the spring. And we are going to look at doing more of Menands Road all the way up to, I think it's,
It's the whole road, they could,
Goes all the way to 378.
because that's the reason.
I thought we were cutting it off at, Lyle's house.
Well, the original quote, I don't have the quote with me, but the
So we're
original,
gonna reprice doing Menands Road, but include looking at it from including the things that you're talking about. Steve.
Engineering.
I mean, because it doesn't affect my end, because I'm at the lower end.
Right.
But
But
the
it
further
affects
you go
mine,
up.
so don't worry.
But what he's talking about is just the grading into the driveway.
Yeah, I get it, I get it.
And you could tell the contractor,
Right.
you know, making sure that.
Well, right, so that would be my question, because y'all bought on state contractor, didn't put any of that work out to bid again. So what is the scope of work for the paving? Who gives Callahan the scope? Because kids, your driveways aren't gonna get milled out unless it's in the scope of work. They're not gonna care one bit about the transitions going into your
No, I
driveway.
get it.
They're gonna come in, they're gonna mill it, and they're gonna tack it. and they're gonna paint it.
So one of them is Molly's driveway, so I can assure you that we're gonna be looking at exactly and
You need
making,
to write a scope of work for this kind.
Matt, our engineer, will get all over that.
Labella, right?
Yeah.
They do need a scope of work, otherwise you're gonna get what you got. They're gonna put back in.
Does that, just, I mean, does that sound like a plan?
No,
Yeah. Agree on, instead of doing two.
There was a lot of concern, and obviously, I can come out and say personal on my side, my parents were not gonna be happy if we shaved half of their tree right now, to avoid damage to it. And I think that Man Road needs the work done more than Brookside does at this point in time. I was not on the board when they made that initial decision, but I think, we needed to relook at it, so.
Okay, so let's get back to the tree trimming. Mike, Don and I, looked at the trees that were initially proposed, by Seven Zox, who's the only tree company that came and actually, gave us an estimate. There are several trees in the park that need to be,
I have a
taken.
question about that. Can we get like a report of why, like, these trees, it just seems like this is a lot to come out of the park.
Yeah, so all of the ones that were, targeted for removal were removed and were on their way out. In fact, there were two that were on the initial estimate, the cedar, which just is a cedar tree.
Yeah.
It looks, it's still an
Just
interesting.
these couple near the playground,
A lot of those trees are special because
and they, yeah.
Louis Menands put them in and they're very,
Every
unusual
one of them
trees.
that we looked at was looked at by the arborist, and they all have a disease of some kind and are severely beyond repair. Like the large elm that's by the basketball court is very diseased in the hollow in the center. So if it came down, it could potentially damage, if it fell the wrong way, it would damage the new basketball court. For a person, there's a tree that is filled of a hollow next to the pickleball court. That is full of yellow jackets.
I'm just wondering, do you have like a report of all of these, like what all the different things are?
Yeah, I'm glad to walk it with you and point them all out, if you want to do that.
Yeah, I just want to know.
So obviously the removal of the work that was, scheduled for, Brookside is in this quote. And it was $100 per tree. There's 13 trees, so $1,300 will be removed from the estimate. Otherwise, the price was $8,900. So we need to schedule that so that we, get the work done in the next 6 weeks, and it includes stump grinding, all of them. So I need a motion for Seven Zox.
Are they aware that we're?
Yes, they are. So the actual price is $7,600.
So I move that we accept the bid from, Seven Zox, to remove, sets of trees as identified in the contract for $7,000. What did you have?
$7,600.
Which numbers are coming out here on the?
13 trees down.
It's the second blue.
Oh, okay. Okay, the 13, okay. I'm looking at this one. All right. Okay, thank you. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Additionally, on the subject of trees, when you're walking your dog anywhere in the village of Menands, and I'm not a tall man, I normally have to duck to get by most of the trees and some shrubs that are overgrown on corners of streets, like the corner of Menand Road and Broadway. Is there any, is it?
You want to send a list to Don, we'll look at them all.
Is it?
You want to send a list to Don, we'll look at them all.
I would look at every street. in my neighbors.
What's next on?
You were gonna talk about the catch basin on Graf Under.
There's a catch basin on the corner of Graff Under where the bend is that collapsed, after the last, well, I think it would be under the major rainstorm that we had. It needed to be repaired immediately, and we hired Chick Cronow, who is our go-to for emergency service week, work, and, he, replaced, the whole box.
So he had to rebuild it right from the ground up, basically.
And, so, we had to do that. I think the bill was roughly $10,000, which came out of stormwater, issues. The bigger issue is that the storm culvert accepts water that comes from the Prune, Colonial Green, and transport it underneath Graff Under to Little's Lake. And so I am scheduling a meeting to talk to Peter Comey to talk about that issue and sharing some of the expense going forward for such issues.
Also, while they were doing that work on Mighton, there's a creek where the stormwater goes into, needed to be dredged out a little bit, because it was, when the water was stopping, because where the water, the pipe actually goes into there was clogged because of all the overgrowth, so they cleaned that all out, so now this Mighton Lane won't flood out either at the same time.
Yeah, and I know in Graf Under there, the people right there on the corner, that water runs behind, had a lot of issues.
They should have corrected all that.
Yeah, okay.
Did our DTW do the work on Mighton, or was that Chip?
Chip that too, because they needed the long excavation equipment to get in there, because our backhoe wasn't
Yeah, of course, yeah.
large enough to do it.
Since he was there, we just asked him to go around the corner and use the scooter.
They can make quick work of that.
And the only thing we did was we cleaned out, they had to clean the brush out in front of, like, right on Mighton, so they
Yeah.
cleared that out, and then Chip went in and did the rest of the stuff.
Good. Glad we got that done.
Okay, what's next?
90 Broadway.
Okay, regarding the dispensary, there was some confusion over the hours. The hours, that are proposed, just so we have it in the record, is 11 to 9, Monday through Friday, 9 to 9 on Saturday, and 12 to 9 on Sunday. That was what they originally agreed to and proposed. So we need a motion to make sure that that is included in the special use permit. If they operate appropriately, they can come in and make adjustments to the hours, but as we decided, not until then.
Right.
So I need a motion.
And they're good for right now with the discussion on that?
They don't have a, those are the hours.
I'll make a motion, except for the vended hours.
Any second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You want to talk about the nuisance alarm?
Yeah.
So, speaking with the fire department and the police department for those demands, we have come up with an idea of implementing a nuisance alarm, which is basically, nuisance alarm is defined as any alarm activation that is not a genuine emergency, including accidental activations, system malfunctions, and or user error. This results in unnecessary deployment of police, fire, and emergency responses that could be simultaneously needed for a genuine emergency elsewhere in the village. So to combat this, we will be implementing a chart of fees that businesses and residents will have to pay if they don't either maintain their nuisance, not their nuisance, if they don't maintain their fire alarms, sprinklers, and carbon monoxide detectors within their homes and businesses within the village.
I have a question. How many calls do you get a year?
For example, on Elmwood, the truck sales, back in July, we had 4 calls in 5 days due to their fire alarm system not working. We went all 4 times, told them the exact same reason why it's not working. They decide not to fix it. So at the end of the day, they're just letting it be because there's no charge to them. There's no fee added. So to combat that and to tell them to fix it rather than having us be deployed every single time there's not an emergency needed.
This is a law that's piggybacked off of the town of Colony. They implemented this law in 2022.
Is it for just, fire or is it for a burglar too?
It's both. Police is also having
The
a nuisance
schedule will
alarm.
be different for each. And you get to
I
answer,
have false alarms at my building and I'm in the town, and I've never gotten a fee.
how many do you have a year?
It depends if the batteries go down and if we lose power and if it loses power, I'm sure that they call me first, but they always dispatch and then I have to call and follow up, but.
It was
implemented.
just implemented, yeah, so,
Ever.
Right, but it's brand new in 2022, last year, so it's possible you haven't gotten it yet.
And there's a threshold that you would meet and then you would get penalized. So like, for example, the first 3 alarms would be no fee, the 4th would be a fee, the 5th, the 6th, the higher you go, the more.
there's an appeal process.
There's a
and-
30-day appeal process, and we're gonna generate a review board as well, so you can come to the board and say, hey, this is wrong, my system wasn't working wrong, it just, something else happened, so there's ways to defend yourself rather than just getting a letter in the mail saying you have a penalty to pay.
Laura, a couple of weeks ago, Albany Lofts had 12 or 14 alarms in one weekend. Albany Lofts at 1 Broadway.
Oh, okay.
So that's, I mean, that's what sparked the whole
So
thing.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we get dispatched every single time for that.
We go to breaks every week.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
I
was just curious.
Civic stars more.
Breaks and conduct fried chicken, we go every week.
Is this businesses and residents?
Yes.
Yeah. Because
We have some residences who CO detectors go off.
Because they don't fix the batteries.
Understood.
There's wire shortages. So it's a way to prevent issues arising in the future, to make sure their equipment is operating properly. God forbid there was an emergency and their alarm system decided not to work. This is a way to make sure it does work in the future.
It's not that you're not coming to the call. You're just gonna charge a homeowner now because your CO detector has old batteries.
Yes.
But if it happens in each quarter, there's like, it's either 2 or 3 times or 3 times per quarter. So it's not, if it did it, you could do it 12 times a year, it's still not gonna be a problem. But if it becomes 14, 15 for the same thing,
Business and residents?
yeah.
So how would you be notified if it's a residence? Because if it's just like a chirp going on and a neighbor can hear it, how would you be?
Well, usually when fire gets dispatched to the village of Menands, this colony fire investigation comes as well. So they're able to determine if there was malfunction in the fire alarm system, something started it elsewhere. So they're able to investigate the issue, and then afterwards, we're able to find out why it happened.
You're talking about hardwired security systems, which will have to be registered with the clerk. Yeah. So not your go to Home Depot, buy one and.
Right, that's good to know though.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll be introduced on next meeting.
Yes, the 21st.
And then set down for a public hearing the following.
I'm up next.
Yeah.
The village of Menands is, all municipalities are, exempt from having disability insurance for their employees. So we led a discussion a few months ago about, offering it to our employees. It's gonna be under New York State disability insurance. The total cost for all our employees would cost the village $2,791 per year. The employees will pay 60 cents per pay period to offset the cost of that. I apologize, I didn't do the math to what the difference is, but it brings it down to like $1,600, something like that. So, I'd like someone make a motion to approve again, offering our employees New York State disability insurance.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's, let's see, 7-day waiting period, 50% of the earnings to a maximum benefit, and maximum pay period of 26 weeks, which is happy.
We contacted, New York Leak Detection. We asked them to come in and do a analysis, leak detection, our annual analysis of our, to find any leaks that are in the village. It takes approximately 7 days to do it, and if they do it night and day, they do it different times of the day. So like on Broadway, when all the traffic is, they can, because they use acoustic sounds to find the leaks. This year's leak detection quote was for $775. It's up about $1,500 from the last time we did it, but that was a year ago. But last year they found 12 leaks that were taken care of.
So is this off a state contract? Or?
There's no state contract.
There's no state contract for this?
There might be a minute.
They're the only one.
Well, there's another one we used, and he did the whole village in a night. And it was,
You wonder whether he did it.
and he didn't, and nothing was,
He didn't find anything.
he didn't find anything.
Okay,
And
all right, I got you.
so these are the only people, there's only 2 or 3 people that do this.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion that we, accept the, bid for $11,775 from GPRS.
Second. All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? This is out of water.
Next, it's up to the police chief.
Oh, well, actually, it's the garage doors.
Close.
Well, our garage doors are 40 or 50 years old and they're rotting at the bottom. So I've got 3 quotes for 5 new garage doors, which I think you have.
Yeah, the first quote was for $12,181. That was from Adirondack Overhead Doors. Madsen was $13,743, and Shelling Overhead Doors was $13,000.
What's the option 2?
It's more R factor, and that's,
Yeah, the insulation in the door.
So Ryan, your suggestion is to go with which? The R10 is fine,
The R10, they seem to be all the same.
except for the one advanced one.
Yeah, and that was like 16.5 R value, but it was also a lot more money.
So Adirondack is it?
Sure.
So I want to make that motion.
Okay, I move to approve the bid for Adirondack Overhead Door Company to replace the police department garage doors at a cost of $12,181.
second.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
When we got the bids for the windows, I told everyone that came in to do the bid, we need to replace all the windows. There's 19 windows here. Comfort Window, for some reason, only bid on 14 windows. So the additional 5 windows will be $6,970. But they're still lower than the other company, so I need to make an amendment to the approval to get 5 additional more windows from Comfort Windows.
It was just, so just they miscounted.
Yes.
Discounted.
So
We gotta
the
pay
others
more because
bid
of
on the
this.
whole job.
Everybody bid on the whole 19 windows. These people only
So
bid,
the reason they were so low was because they missed 5 windows.
but they're still lower than the other 2
Is it possible that we could say, hey, you bid on all the windows?
but they, in the
Well, if
contract,
you
in the
look at the
contract,
count is only to replace the windows they bid on.
so that's only, it's in the quote that they gave us, it said 14 windows, and I didn't catch it because I didn't.
Well, I think I actually mentioned that. Why is the number different? And somebody said because the size of the windows will be different, and so we'll take so many, or takes less windows or something, and it was, okay.
So when you figure out the math,
The
for
math,
their,
if
for
you
the
take
the
the
same amount of
60
windows, they are
it's a
still a low bidder.
Right, yes.
We need a motion.
My statement though was, when we go forward,
Yes.
Yeah, with anything else with these guys. There you go.
And Tim, I agree. We've had that kind of thing before in a similar way where they'll be the low bidder and then at the 11th hour, they come in with a change order as
Yeah.
well. So this may not be exactly that, but we have to be aware of all
Right.
of that. So I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Second,
Wait, who made the motion?
Tim?
no, I seconded you. You motion.
Oh, I didn't make the motion.
Oh, I thought you did. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, I made the one about the police.
Well, then I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Molly and Tim. All those in favor?
I
Are there any opposed?
had no problem making the emotion.
What?
I just didn't,
I apologize.
oh, it's all
I
good.
misunderstood.
It's all good. It's getting late.
Next one's you, Brian.
Sure.
I'm gonna table that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Oh, we saved that.
Yeah.
A few months ago, we made a motion to move the September 26th board meeting due to Nikon to September 26th. But, we have a conflict because court is the same night as the 26th. So, my suggestion is that we change it to the 27th. It's only 4 days or 5 days before the next board meeting, so I think we should cancel the 26th board meeting because there's just no time to have it and we're gonna be doing the same work twice.
As well as don't forget, we can't have it on the Monday,
Yeah,
because that's Yom Kippur.
Yep.
So that would make the next meeting thereafter with 10-2, first Monday of October.
No,
No,
yeah,
10,
yeah,
or that'd be 10-3.
10:30.
yeah, Tuesday.
No.
No,
I'm sorry.
10-2. The next meeting then it would be 10-2. Do we have agreement on that?
So the motion is actually to, a resolution to
Cancel the.
cancel the meeting of September 26th.
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's just rip through some of these building projects we got going on. We talked about 5056 Clifford, 5 Elmwood, which is the old bowling alley. I think there's been progress that we've noted there. The graffiti is all drawn and the roof is new. They're taking steps finally to improve that property. 4-8 Wolford Avenue has been purchased by a company called DAC Construction. They're gonna put their local offices from
Village Colony.
Village of Colony down here in Menands. They're gonna start working with Lyle to renovate the building and gonna have their regional office for their construction company out of Wolford Ave. So
Yeah, the other thing we're gonna do is, right now, it's got 3 addresses for that building. We're gonna work with 911, it's just gonna be 4.
Yeah.
So, that'll help. Let's see, the cell phone tower, the new cell phone tower at the Menands Market. Don, you wanna?
Yeah, it's Verizon is the only one that's on there right now, and it's energized, but it's not in service because it'll be in service. They're missing one part they need, and it'll be in service hopefully by the end of the week. Also, they are at no cost going to allow us to put an antenna on for the cameras along Broadway. So I need a motion to have, either Ryan or the mayor sign the contract that says it's okay, because they need they sent us a
So
contract.
basically what they're doing is for $1, I think, for consideration. They're allowing us to put, basically a repeater. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's an antenna. The problem is the 378 bridge is not, it's blocking the signal for the cameras in the north end of the village.
So that'll help get the clear signal to the police station so they can monitor the entire stretch of Broadway. So I need a motion to sign that document.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
While we're talking about buildings, what's happening with the parking lot down the street? Now we're CDL trading in it.
So I actually had, Lyle issue them a zoning violation, for, inappropriate use. I had a conversation with Don today, with the owners of or the attorney representing the owners of the property. Conveyed to them that they were using the property, for trucks and a non-conforming, non-zoned use. They are hearing, before the court on August 24th, for an appearance ticket to start the process to, either correcting that or presenting an argument as to why they believe that it is appropriate. That conversation did happen today.
You mentioned the work on the old bowling alley. What is there a business going in there?
Yeah, so that is gonna be a distribution center for, I guess, convenience stores that operate in the entire Capital District. So they place an order to whatever supplies they need. They load up and go and deliver that to them.
My question, how many new jobs would be created at the former bowling alley?
Not sure yet.
Like 18?
I don't know. They have yet to, start work on the interior of the building. They're waiting for, I think, Lyle for some.
Yeah, they're working on demo, they're demoing.
And you mentioned there's another business is leaving the village of Colony to come here. How many jobs is that gonna create? You don't know.
That construction, I don't know yet. But they're smaller than BBL, and as far as billings, but they do multiple hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
Right? Just so everybody knows, I do support those projects.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
All right.
Any update on the Deneron project?
Unfortunately, no. There was a capital meeting, last Thursday. It was supposed to be, signed by the CEO of the company, and, we're still waiting. It's a when, not an if. What else we got done?
The only thing I got left is, on August 23rd from 5 to 8, it's gonna be the community night and village picnic at Gander Smith Park. There's gonna be police, fire, and EMS demonstrations. There's gonna be activities for the kids. There's gonna be bouncy houses. There's gonna be food. It's gonna be a good time for all.
Did you receive the contract from Mr. Twisting yet?
Not yet.
I'll rattle his chain.
Yeah, I need it for next board meeting.
Yeah, I'll make sure you get it by tomorrow.
Okay.
Any other board members have anything?
I think so.
I wanna keep going? All right. So, regarding item number
9
on the agenda, we need a motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go into executive session regarding a legal matter.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So if anyone wants to wait, until we reconvene, you can go to the court.
Okay, take care.
Have a good night.
See you, Bill. And then we'll get back in touch, when we reconvene.
Second.
Who's seconding? Who seconded the motion? Molly. All right, we need to dismiss anyone, let's try and reconnect it. Don.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is paper.
I will have a good night.
What happened was they added more stuff on it.
This is right. I didn't get to read that. You sure? You sure? Yeah. Okay, Cal.
I was down there for
I know you want to be there. So maybe it would be- You want me to send it to you tomorrow?
Yes, got it.
Insurance. 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 Insurance.
I'll send it to
So, thank you very much for the support.
It was great. We had a good meeting today with Nick, or with Jen and Kathleen.
I got the bill today at 3:00. There's two items. Yeah, so it'll be, I'll forward a copy of the contract to you tomorrow.
Send it to the group, just so they can see, because I have a meeting next week. Thank you.
Tim, we need to go.
John, I just sent the, follow-up email to Mr. Steve.
Okay, thank you.
So we're not recording?
Oh, shit.
We recorded that.
Tim, we need to go. Don, what are you doing?
Shouldn't turn off the recorder.
You need to go somewhere?
I'm just gonna go pee.
All right.
You can, you